You're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com, featuring Q-Ball Carmichael, Zane Paisley, Drew Skills, and the Morning Star, William Huckabee.
The Undisputed Wrestling Show is now.
It's Tuesday night, ladies and gentlemen, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're cashing checks and snapping necks. This is one of your hosts, Q-Ball Carmichael. I got the bearded wonder, Zane Paisley, on the other side of me. And, of course, tonight, we're lucky to have a guy who is iconic in the sport of professional wrestling, a guy who I met for the first time in my whole 33-year career at WrestleCade this year, and a man whose voice got me up on the edge of my seat as a young man, ready for the best wrestling that there was to offer. We've got none other than Gary Michael Cappetta. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being invited.
Well, it's good to have you. And, as I said, I went a little crazy at WrestleCade because, when I was younger and I was watching wrestling before I embarked on my career, the important thing to me, the way that I knew that my wrestling was going to come on that television was I heard your voice. And so for me, to hear your voice was one of the most exciting things that I remember from being a young man, because then I was going to get what I wanted to see. And I just wanted to thank you as a fan of wrestling, which I think all wrestlers were when they got in, or most of us. And, it was really good to grow up with that voice.
Well, I think the key to that is I've always been a fan. So the excitement that you heard in my voice was real. And I think that whether you apply that to a wrestler or an announcer, that, people can see through fakeness, But if you are real and you are as genuinely excited about the rematch between Bruno Sammartino and superstar Billy Graham for the belt, if you're as equally excited about that match as the guy that's sitting in the third row and the lady that's sitting up in the balcony, then there's a connection there. I mean, we're all together. And I think, I would guess that's probably why we connected.
Yeah, I'm sure of it because, it was like you weren't excited enough. You'd hear your voice as a young man, you'd almost get chills because you could tell that your enthusiasm for what you did and your passion for what you did was infectious. And, as a wrestler, that's how we get fans to emotionally invest in us and we can build a career. And I would imagine that as an announcer, it's equally the same thing.
Sure. I mean, if I'm sitting, if I'm sitting up in the balcony, which I do sometimes, I like to go to indie shows and to see what's going on, and I see a wrestler walk down the aisle, it doesn't take but a few seconds to make a snap judgment about him. You may be wrong and that may change later, but right. You can see and feel an authenticity, that person is real. And that, yeah, you're right. It's infectious.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, what I like to do with all of our guests is I like to do a little lineage. I mean, when you grew up, did you watch wrestling? How did you follow it? What made you decide to get in the business, or what was your first break to get in the business, if you don't mind?
I accidentally happened upon a wrestling show. I lived in the New York media market. I lived in New Jersey. And midnight, Saturday nights, WOR, that was the one night, the one and only hour that you could see wrestling, and it was WWE.
Channel 9. Channel
yes,
9,
sir.
Right? Yes, sir. I saw it too as a kid.
Right after Racing from Roosevelt. And, when I looked at it, I had the feeling that it's something that as a kid, now I was like in the 6th grade, that I probably shouldn't have been watching. I just, these guys that were in tights and like barely clad, and they're rolling around and sweating, and then, the next week there's these 4 dwarfs that are wrestling, and I'm saying, so I would never let anyone know I was watching this, because I thought I was, it was equivalent to porno to me. It was like something I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be watching it. And, but it was infectious, like every week you had to check out what was going to happen next. And, and then eventually, I came out of the closet as far as being a wrestling fan. And I got my parents to start bringing me to shows. They would never go, but I had a cousin who was also interested, so that they would drop us off. I would check it out. When I started to drive, obviously I got myself there to armories and convention halls at the beaches along the Jersey Shore, and depended upon the season as to where the shows were. Once in a while, high school gyms, and then I went to college, continued to watch, and it's odd to me now because when I look at old programs and tickets that I have, the prices were like $3.50 for general admission and $5 for ringside. But back then, I wanted to be able to get in for free because it was expensive. When you're in school and you're not generating any income. So I was able to secure a press pass, which got me into the matches for free. And within a few months, they needed an announcer, and I volunteered. Had no experience, and don't ask me what caused me to think I could be an announcer, but it just happened. Willie Gilzenberg was the president of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
What year was that, Gary?
It was 1974.
Wow.
And little did I know that Gorilla Monsoon was a part owner of Capital Wrestling, the corporate arm, and he was also the promoter. I didn't know that. I just knew him as a wrestler. And they liked what I did the first night, which was I was just sitting at the table, at the timekeeper's table, because I wasn't dressed to get in the ring. And they were having matches once a week in Wildwood Convention Hall. Oh,
I love Wildwood.
Yeah. So they said to me, come back next week, wear a tie, and we'll put you in the ring. And I didn't believe it, but I did it. And I just, started announcing. Of course, they wouldn't let me in the locker room. I got dressed in like the medical emergency room because the locker rooms were off base to anyone that wasn't a wrestler or a referee.
Right.
So and so I just I didn't know that I was working for someone as powerful as Monsoon. I just didn't know it. I was clueless. Right. And at the end of the summer, I started teaching, and he called me up and he asked me if I wanted to continue to work with him. And so I said, sure. So a few nights a week, 2-3 nights a week on an average, I would teach in the day, and I would have my suit in the car, and I would just head off to a wrestling show and then be back for school in the next morning. And it was all local. It was a territory, and he was in charge of New Jersey, Delaware, Eastern Pennsylvania. And his other partners were, in charge of other areas.
Right.
So that's how, and as it turned out, he was also the producer of the weekly wrestling TV show for the McMahons. Right. And so after 2 years, he asked me to start doing the TV show. And that's how it started.
Well, no, that was the Tri-WF back then, right? Tri-WWF?
It was the WWWF.
Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
Yeah. So in 74 to 76, I had local practice. 76, he put me on TV. I think it was around 79 or so that they changed to WWF.
Right, right. Well, for me, my wife's from South Jersey, so Wildwood's a very familiar place for me. But, back then, a lot of people don't understand the territory system and how big and how powerful Gorilla Monsoon was, though. I know that he had a lot of the territory and area for Vince Sr., but he was probably one of the most respected guys that was doing that at the time in the Northeast. Am I right?
Absolutely. But not only because of the power that he held, but because of the person that he was.
Right.
He was just a great guy. He was a generous guy. He was savvy, with business and but when you compare how he dealt with the talent versus how the McMahons dealt with the talent, it was very like day and night. You really wanted to get out and perform at your best, in part because of him, because he was such a motivator.
Do you think, Gary, that had something to do with the fact that he had been a wrestler for so long and they had not been?
That's I've never thought of that, but I think you might have something there. Yeah, I would not be surprised. But I knew his wife Maureen, I knew his kids, I knew his dad.
Right.
They were just real solid, good people.
Yeah, it was tragic. I don't think he was ever the same after his son passed, Joey.
Joey.
That's the impression I got. Yeah, wasn't it his son that passed? What was his name? I may be wrong.
Yeah, Joey.
Joey, yeah. I don't think he was the same. I mean, that's from guys that know. My one experience with Gorilla Monsoon was in about 1981, before I left for Hawaii to go train. They had a show. Back then, as you said, they used to do smaller shows. They were at Cortland High School in Cortland, New York, but they were at Ithaca College one night. And I remember the main event was Jimmy Snuka, and I think he wrestled maybe Dr. X or somebody like that. And but I was selling cars at the time, and so I was wearing a 3-piece suit, and I was dressed pretty nice. And I asked somebody where the bathroom was. They said, go downstairs. So I went downstairs, and I walk in the locker room. Now, this is 81, so Jimmy Snuka is the top of his game, and he's sitting there, and Gorilla Monsoon is standing there. And I walked in, and I was dumbfounded. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's Jimmy Snuka and Gorilla Monsoon. And he's like, can I help you? I go, looking for the bathroom. He goes, you got to leave. And then, it's 15 years later, and I'm wrestling Jimmy Snuka in New Jersey on a big show. So, it's funny how it changed around. But I remember, the thing that shocked me was I knew Gorilla Monsoon was big. When I walked in and stood there face to face with him, he was a really big guy.
Yeah. And if it was at Ithaca College, that was special to him because he graduated from Ithaca.
I know he did. And so that was
3-letter man.
And, I found out later after that he had graduated from Ithaca College because I'm from that area originally in upstate. So to me, it was kind of, there's a lot of cool things that happen in Ithaca, but that was one of the big things. I said, wow, Gorilla Monsoon graduated from Ithaca College. And
he was a 3-letter man, wrestling, track, and I think football. Yeah.
Well, guys that know him, I didn't really know him. And guys that do told me you wouldn't believe what kind of athlete this guy was for his size. And, the only thing I can equivalent it to is, I wrestled King Kong Bundy probably a couple dozen times back in the day. And he was an incredible athlete for the size. And, people told me that Monsoon was even better of an athlete. So.
Yeah, he was incredibly agile for a guy of his size. The only thing you had to be careful of, I would think, if you were wrestling him, is his eyesight was really poor, and he didn't wear contacts. I don't even know we had contacts back then, and so he may hurt you without meaning to, because he just couldn't see. He couldn't see without his glasses.
It's kind of funny when a guy that big hurts you accidentally. It probably feels pretty horrific, but.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question, Gary. You were with, obviously Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. What was the year that you left there? And was there any time in between before you went and did some WCW stuff?
I left there in 85. It wasn't because I quit. It wasn't because I was fired. There was a changing of the guard.
Right.
Vinny had bought his dad's shares. He wanted all of the shares, and so which means that he wanted to buy out Monsoon and Skoland and Savoldi, and there was he found a way that forced them to sell to him, and when that happened, the whole power structure shifted. Monsoon lost his power. I was viewed as, one of Monsoon's guys, because I was.
Right,
I was brought in by him. And as soon as that happened, I think about that time, the TV taping shifted to Poughkeepsie.
Right.
And, I could see that I had no future there.
From Allentown? They were in Allentown before then, weren't they?
Excuse me?
Were they in Allentown before Poughkeepsie?
Allentown and Hamburg, Pennsylvania, yeah.
Gotcha.
And before Allentown, it was the Philadelphia Arena.
Gotcha.
So I started to, to work wherever I wanted to work. And you know what was very, very odd? And I think I hold the distinction for what I'm going to tell you, of being the only person to ever work for the AWA, the NWA, and the WWF at the same time.
Wow.
Because Pro Wrestling USA started, and I began to announce for them, and once a month for a short period of time, they had shows at the Meadowlands Arena. But I was still working for the WWF, and I was announcing at the Meadowlands Arena. So it was like every other week I was there for the different promotions.
Wow.
And I always wondered why the WWF didn't tell me to take a hike, or why no one ever said anything to me.
Right.
So I made the decision that I couldn't maintain any credibility if I was going into the same arena every 2 weeks, and say this is the greatest wrestling in the world when they're competitors. So I made the decision to stop working for the WWF, and and then I just full-time, it was part-time, but in this region, I became the announcer for AWA and NWA.
Let me ask you a question, Gary. How long are you with the AWA?
It was, let's see. AWA was the first pro wrestling organization to ever be on ESPN.
Correct.
And at that time, I don't know, it was Monday or Tuesday nights, it was an hour and a half of wrestling, an hour and a half of roller derby.
Right.
And they began their shows out of Atlantic City. I think it was the Tropicana. And so I announced the weekly ESPN show for the AWA. I did a couple of their pay-per-views, and then whenever they were in locally, probably a few years. But remember, they were trying to work together with the NWA.
Right.
So at that point, I started to announce Jim Crockett's shows in Baltimore and at the Meadowlands and in New Haven. So there was a bit of an overlap, probably a few years.
Right. Let me ask you a question. How was Vern to work for in comparison
Vern
to
treated
maybe
me
Vince
very
Sr.?
well. I mean, there are legendary stories about Vern, most of which I would believe, but because he was a bit clueless for the time, as far as, well, we had the rock and wrestling, what was it, Super Clash?
Yes, Super Clash.
3 or something.
Was it from Chicago, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
and it was rock
that.
and wrestling, and he didn't have a rock act there. He had a country act. I don't think he knew the difference. But, that being said, he was good to me. He just was a bit clueless. I think it was a result, to tell you the truth, of that for whatever my differences might be with Vinny, he was a visionary.
Right.
And someone like Vern, when the AWA was a territory, or for anyone who had a territory, they didn't have competition.
Right.
So they didn't have a need to do anything other than what they felt was best with their wrestling mind and not have to expand outside to pop culture.
I got you.
So I just think he believed that, what he did was solid as far as wrestling goes, but everything had advanced so far past him and he never was able, I think, to go with what was happening, in those mid to late 80s.
I think that's tough when you see for him, my impression is, and, once again, I don't know him, but my impression is he was stuck in the old school mentality, old school guard. But at that particular time, I think that wrestling was changing so fast and with the WWF that if you didn't keep up with that, you were going to fail miserably. I mean, I think they went out to Vegas for a while and did shows, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe,
the ESPN show went out to Vegas, but he didn't, it's not that he couldn't keep up. I think, and maybe he couldn't, we'll never know, but I think he didn't see the need to.
Gotcha.
Give you a real quick example. Things weren't going so well with the feedback he was getting from ESPN, and one day into the run from Atlantic City, he says to me, Gary, he said, I want you to tell me the total truth. He says, what do you think of our product? What do you think of our show? Now, of course, I had to be very careful, you know, and I wasn't going to lie, but I wasn't. So I just threw the question back at him, and I just said, I don't know, Vern. What do you think? And he said, I don't know. I've never seen it. It just gives you some idea that he didn't feel the need, that he knew one thing. He knew wrestling and how it worked in Minneapolis and in Green Bay and in Denver and, you know, his AWA territory.
Right.
And he never watched it. I don't know that he'd be able to critique it in the times, you know, in the times, as you said, that were advancing past him so fast. I don't even think he knew it was happening.
Right. Do you remember my good friend and actually business partner, illustrious Johnny Stewart from AWA days?
Johnny Stewart.
Illustrious Johnny Stewart?
I know of Johnny Stewart.
Okay.
But I don't know that we've ever met.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Did you do any of the Vegas stuff for Vern?
No, because I was teaching. I always taught until I started working for Turner Broadcasting.
Gotcha.
So from 74 through 89, I was a full-time teacher.
That's the advice I got when I started. Don't quit your day job, kid.
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, and it would have been a mistake, but if at the time when the WWF was, you know, heading towards and into WrestleMania, if they had asked me if I would work full-time for them, I probably would have said no. Just because I had something solid. I had, you know, and the only reason that I left teaching in 89 was because TBS was behind World Championship Wrestling. So I felt this is going to be the best shot I'm going to have at working full-time and have it last a bit. And that's why I started with them full-time, and that's why I quit teaching.
Sure. I kept a sales job because it had insurance for my family and benefits and all that other good stuff until I had a chance to work full time for 3 or 4 years. But I understand completely. Did you teach in New Jersey?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
I taught in New Jersey, and it was even made easier for me when I went to work for TBS because the people, I mean, where I was teaching, they didn't want me to leave. And I just said, I have to. I'm sorry, but I really have to take this shot. And you see, everybody knew that I was an announcer because my students would see me every weekend on television.
Hard to hide it from them.
You know, and I tried to keep things separate. I didn't encourage talking a lot about pro wrestling in school. So what they did was they said, well, Gary, okay, we understand. Go out, see what happens. And I would have never asked for this, to tell you the truth, but they said to me, we're going to give you a year's leave of absence.
Oh, wow.
And if it doesn't work out, you come back and your teaching job will be here for you.
Wow.
So that was huge. That gave me so much independence. That was amazing.
Sure, yet you still had some security in case it didn't work out for some reason.
It was the best of everything, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, tell me about your time at Turner Broadcasting. You were there for how many years?
I was there from 89 into 95. 6 years.
Okay. How was it working for WCW when it was Turner owned?
At my level, for what I did, I was real content. I was real happy. I mean, even though I know in those early years, especially, that the people that were running the wrestling division didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
I mean, I had a good time. I had the best of everything because they didn't know what category to put me in. So I was receiving performer pay and corporate benefits.
Wow.
And I even said to them, because I know myself, and I need my alone time. And I just couldn't see myself in a car with 3 other guys and going by everybody else's schedule. So I said to them, the only thing is I need to travel alone. And if I want to, bring a guy on board with me, I will, which I did at times.
Right.
So I had total independence on the road. And, so how could you not like that, right?
Yeah, that's the best. Like you said, it's the best of both worlds, If you want somebody on the road with you, and if you don't, because I'm sort of a lonesome dove. I mean, I spent my time 3-4 up in a car and had our learning experiences and slept 5 or 6 up in a hotel room made for 3. But, you know, after a while, that gets overrated.
Sure. And, you know, there were lonely times on the road. And, you know, when that would happen, I would ask someone if they wanted to drive with me. You know, Mick Foley was on the road with me for, you know, once in a while, and Steve Austin, and Dutch Mantell. And they always loved it because my expense account covered all of our expenses. So, of course, you know, they're going to want to, they put up with me for that.
That made you a very popular guy.
And the way that came about was, I was doing the Clash of Champions before I came on full time.
Right.
I was doing their Clash of Champions, their pay-per-views, the WCW, NWA stuff. And then Vern asked me to do a pay-per-view for him, and I did that. When Jim Hurd, who was in charge of wrestling for WCW, saw me on their pay-per-view, he sent word to someone who I was driving to New Haven with that I couldn't do that anymore, that I wasn't allowed to. Now, I wasn't under contract to anybody. So I said, well, first off, why isn't he calling me himself and telling me this? Second off, you tell him that if someone offers me a job and I'm sitting home and WCW does not have a show, I'm going to go do it.
Right.
So if he wants me, whenever he wants me, and if he wants me to sit home, whenever he wants me to sit home, he's going to have to pay me for it. So tell him to put me under contract. And that's when they put me under contract.
Now, were you doing house shows along with TV tapings, both for WCW?
Not until '89 when I came under contract.
Right. And then you did both?
Then I did. Yes, I did house shows. I did the weekly syndicated show. I did the Clash of Champions, and I did the pay-per-views.
Wow. So you were on the road quite a bit then? I
was, yeah. Probably between 20, 25 days a month.
Wow. That's, you know, it'll do one of two things for you. You'll get addicted to it or it'll take its toll on you.
Yeah, I think both happened, actually.
Right? And, you know, I mean, you know, if you're getting performer pay and you're doing house shows, you'd rather do those, obviously, because they pay more. But, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where I think you get caught in a cycle of, I can't say no because I want to keep my job because the money's good and everything else is good. What happened in '95 when you left there?
Eric Bischoff had taken over. And he
that explains it.
Yeah, he just had a different vision and didn't understand my contribution to the organization, and wanted to model his television show off of WWF, who never showed their announcer at that point. I think he just figured, why am I spending all this money for someone that I'm going to de-emphasize? And they did offer me an opportunity to work in the office because it was expensive to fly me back and forth. Because in addition to my ring announcing, there were different times when I was working in the studio. For a little while, I hosted the event center. I was doing a Spanish edition of our weekly show for KCAL in Los Angeles. So, you know. And I didn't want to move to Atlanta. I had just purchased property here in Jersey, and this is where I wanted to be my base. And I never wanted to work in the political area of an office. You know, that I like being on the road. Yeah. Right.
And you know what good homegrown East Coast boy like us wants to live in Atlanta, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kidding. It was a shot at Atlanta, which I got a lot of friends there.
Okay. Yeah, I had no problem with Atlanta.
Now, in '95 when you left, did you go back to teaching or what did you do?
I wrote my book. I spent 2 years writing body slams, and then I went back to teaching after I finished it. I shopped it around, was not successful shopping it around. I self-published it in 2000. It was really successful because it was the first book ever written about pro wrestling in this way, you know, and just being honest. It was
Right.
the second book that was published, actually. Mick Foley's Have a Nice Day, I believe, was published first. And so there was very little competition, you know, as far as
Right.
books go, and people had never, you know, and some at times, when people purchase the book today off of Amazon and they review it, they're reviewing it through 2016 vision. But
Right.
one needs to remember when it was written and that it was
True.
innovative at the time.
Right.
And it did
Where
so
can
well
we
as
get-
a self-published book that ECW Press picked it up in 2005. So it's they're the publisher,
Wow.
ECW.
That's fantastic. Let me. Can you tell us where we can get that book right now for the folks that are listening, and obviously for myself, because I got to tell you, and this hurts me a little bit because you know I've worked a lot of the big names in the business, and you know I was demarked when I was trained, but when I saw you, I got so googly eyed. I walked away, and about 3 hours later, on the ride home after I did my deal at Rest, you see the game, man. Somebody told me, "Did you get his book?" And I'm like, "I didn't even know he had a book for sale." And I was so infatuated with meeting you. It was like, oh my gosh, you don't know. Where can we get that book, Gary?
Well, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on BarnesandNoble.com. You probably can go to any bookstore and order it if you're an old-fashioned kind of person. But if you get it online, you know, there's the audio version. And if you ever come to a fan fest or a convention where I'm at, I usually have some with me.
Well, I want to get one signed by you, so obviously I'm gonna continue to stalk you until I find you at another fan fest. Just kidding. So let me ask you a question, Gary. 2000, you wrote the book. After that was done, took you a couple of years. You went back to teaching. What's next for you?
Well, what happened then was I went back to teaching, and I had heard so much about Ring of Honor. So Ring of Honor was based in Philadelphia at the time.
Correct. Right.
And like I said, I like to get out and see independent wrestling. I went one night to a Ring of Honor show in Philly, and I was very, very impressed with it. And I got in touch with Gabe, who was the booker, and I said, you know, I told him how impressed I was, Gabe Sapolsky.
Right.
And I said, if there's anything I can do to help support your promotion, I would like to do it. Except the one thing I'm not interested in doing is ring announcing. So I started doing the backstage interviews for Ring of Honor in the late 90s, and that lasted for a few years. Yeah. Not in the late 90s, in the late 2000s. Yeah.
Right. And I remember that. And I think that was kind of instrumental in them helping build the brand because, you know, your history tells people that if you're associated with something, that it's going to be credible. So I think that was a really good thing for them to do. I think it was a good move and bringing you in. And now we're all the way up to, go ahead.
I had a great time there. You know, working with the young people. I mean, at the time, CM Punk, Colt Cabana, Brian Daniels, or I'm not sure, isn't his name reversed now or something?
Brian Danielson, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
AJ Styles. I mean, they had a hell of a talent pool there.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really good talent. So we fast forward in 2016. What's next for you?
Well, I am now retired from teaching. I took an early retirement, and I started to get calls from promoters to go out and make appearances, and I do fan fests, conventions, and guest ring announcing, which is what I did in Winston-Salem. I did the main event there,
right? And
I'll be doing the main event in Dyersburg, Tennessee this weekend. I'll be down in. I'm flying into Memphis and going up to Dyersburg.
Beautiful.
And I'll be at the big event up in New York, which is a Fan Fest convention in the first weekend of March. And who knows?
Beautiful. Now,
sort of
Gary,
like my wrestling pension, you know.
Right. It's all over the place. Hey, let me ask you a question. If any of the promoters out there listening to the show tonight, which I'm one of, if they want to get up with you and talk to you about booking you for an event, what's a good social media site for them to get you?
Facebook. Just Gary Cappetta, Gary Michael Cappetta on Facebook.
Yes, I know.
Send me a private message, and we'll go from there.
I was fortunate that you added me as a friend. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go switch over to Zane Paisley because he is a ring announcer in the Midwest, and I know that it probably like any smart young ring announcer, he's admired you and our friend Harvey Finkel. And so let me turn it over to him and let him ask you some questions if I can, Gary.
Sure thing.
Well, thank you so much, Gary Michael Cappetta, the world's most dangerous ring announcer. And welcome to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on
Do you really think I'm dangerous?
Well, that's your nickname, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not just dangerous, you're the most dangerous.
You're right, which is right, more than dangerous.
Yes. So
that came from Jim Cornette, actually, when he was commentating on WCW broadcasts. David Letterman had the world's most dangerous band, and I think he used to watch wrestling. And was it Dick the Bruiser was the world's most dangerous wrestler or something?
Yes.
So that's the lineage. That's where it came from David Letterman to Jim Cornette, and here I am.
Well, I'm actually here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's where Letterman grew up, and Dick the Bruiser was from around here. So yes, you were accurate with that lineage right there.
Excellent.
I do want to ask you some advice, but I want to hit on a few things before we run out of time. You kind of downplayed the event this weekend. In Dyersburg, Tennessee, it is NWA Mid-South show, and you're going to be doing some of the championship matches, ring announcing for that, including the NWA World Tag Team title match. And that's not even the biggest thing. You're going to be inducted into the Ring of Champions there. Is that correct?
Yes, the Hall of Champions. And you are correct. There are 3 championship matches. There's the NWA National Heavyweight title match. There's the NWA World Tag Team title match. And the NWA American title match. And it's a triple main event. Since when I come into promotions, I try to only announce the main events. I'll be announcing all 3 of those. So I really look forward to it.
That is excellent, and I'm so happy that people are utilizing you for that because as you'd said that you'd spent some time writing your book and then finishing up your teaching career. So it's awesome to be able to see you out there. Now you'd mentioned that you are available through Facebook, and I wanted to hit on that again. If people seek out Gary Michael Cappetta, that is the fan page. Everybody can like that. And you have a personal page, Gary Cappetta, but you're going to be running out of space there soon. So people should hit you up on both so that way they get all the information.
Yeah, 2 P's, 2 T's.
Okay.
There you go.
Now, what are your thoughts on, with the WWE Network, and they've uploaded a bunch of shows, including all the Clash of the Champions. What are your thoughts on them using your likeness and your voice right now in 2016 that you did quite a few years ago?
I don't think much of it, in the sense that I'm not liking it. We have a history, the McMahons and I sued them back in the early 90s. Now, this goes back to VHS tapes. I was featured on 11 of them. My voice was taken off of a broadcast and used on the audio tape of the Hulk Hogan workout set for kids at that time. So, but now it's coming back again, and I don't know. I don't like it, and I've been thinking about trying to do something about it.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's not that I don't want my performance to be on there. I just think I should be compensated for it. You have time for a quick story about this?
Yeah, we have all the time in the world.
Very early on, probably early 80s, when Vinny had either just bought out his father or was anticipating buying out his father. He had a vision, and no one can take that away from him and what he has built since. And what we were used to was very little merchandise. You would go to a wrestling show and you'd see a 15-year-old 8x10 picture of a wrestler you could buy, and you could buy a program, and that was it. That was it. You couldn't go to Toys R Us. And there was nothing else out there to purchase. And he had a vision of how he wanted to market his product. So one day, Arnold Skolin, who was a partner, came into the locker room of a house show in northern New Jersey. It was a high school. And he put a stack of papers on the table, and he said, "Boys, before you leave, everyone needs to sign this. Take one and sign it and return it to me." So the guys did what they were told. I took one, I scanned it, just looked at it real quick. I didn't like it, and I just put it in my gear and never signed it. And what it was a release form for now and forever, anywhere in the world, that you've signed away all of your merchandising rights. But like I said, I never signed it. And so therefore, I don't believe they have the right to, to include me in their libraries.
Well, and Gary, I'm good friends with Bill Eadie, and there's, I think there's a difference between, exploiting somebody and using them. I think when you use them, you pay them, and when you exploit them, you don't pay them. And I'm not a huge fan of that at all. I think that you were entertainment value, just like the guys who rang. And I think anytime your voice is mentioned or used, you should be compensated for it, because all those guys that came in later on that used the Matt Hardys and the Jeff Hardys and things like that, those are guys who are still getting royalty checks. Why wouldn't the guys that came in sooner get that too if they're being used?
And that story that I just told you illustrates an intent. It just wasn't,
right.
It just wasn't something that they didn't think of doing. There was an intent there. And Jesse Ventura sued successfully, and won a big settlement back in the day.
Right. Well, it's malicious intent, if you ask me, but what do I know?
And also back at that time, another guy who was savvy was Sergeant Slaughter, and he spoke up, and his reward for speaking up was termination. That's why he, began working for the AWA and a lot of independent shows, because they fired him because he was, quote unquote, a cancer in the locker room.
Oh, wow.
But he was right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we hope that you get it worked out, and I encourage you to do what you need to do to get what you should get, because wrong is right and wrong is wrong. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I have never believed, and having written my book is proof of it, if anyone needs proof, back 16 years ago, I have never believed that you should be, if you feel something is right, you shouldn't worry about expressing it, because anyone that's a smart businessman, like McMahon is a smart businessman, they're not going to say, "Oh, well, he said this about me, so I'm not going to hire him." What he's going to look at is, if I feel that this is going to enhance my product and therefore make me more money, I will hire the guy. Sergeant Slaughter has worked for, the McMahons after he was fired. No, they'll respect you more. You may not get what you think is coming to you, but at least I have peace of mind of, speaking my views.
That's right. And never say never. You never know. So, what do we learn in this business? Never say never.
Yeah, who could have ever envisioned how these old tape libraries could have been used? And we can't envision how they will be used in the future either. Right,
correct. And he's bought up so much stuff for pennies on a dollar that with the network, it's just, it's a lot of profit in there. So I think he spread a little bit of it around.
And
That's
we're
all.
talking about performances from the old WWF TV where, maybe I made $60 for 3 weeks worth of television.
Right.
We're not saying that I was, handsomely compensated up front.
You kept your teaching job, so we know, with most of us, we keep our jobs while we're employed. I was with them for 4 years. I kept my regular job. I was never sure what tomorrow was going to bring. But
that's right. That's smart.
It's, I had a family. I had to take care of my family. I had to have benefits and insurance, and they didn't offer it for a guy who was a regional fill-in. And so, I kept my job, even though they gave me a lot of work for a long time and paid me a few bucks, and I was pretty happy. I got 1099s from them every year, but, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make the leap. So, it is what it is. But I got to tell you, for me, a young guy growing up in New York, watching wrestling in the 70s and going through, going to shows starting in 74 to going to 78, 79, it was an absolute honor to see you be the ring announcer. And I knew that when I heard your voice, I was about to get what I waited for all week to get. So, I give you great kudos, and I have huge respect for what you did and the sacrifices you made to do what you did. And, I couldn't be more thrilled to have met you at WrestleCade and be talking to you tonight.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a great deal to me. Thank you.
Gary, if you've got time, I've got a couple more questions for you, sir.
Shoot.
Okay. The subtitle of your book, the title of your book is Body Slams, Memoirs of a Wrestling Pitchman. Now, Q had mentioned that I was a ring announcer, and I've just been doing it for about a year. I have a great time. I do a weekly show here in Indianapolis, and I do a monthly show in Marion, Indiana. What are some advice that you can give to aspiring ring announcers? And I love that you call yourself a pitchman because, we are kind of the carnival barkers. We're the ones who let the fans know who to cheer and who to boo. What are some things that you can tell me and all the other aspiring ring announcers?
First thing is to do exactly what you're doing. Get as much experience as you can wherever you can get it. Remember, there are maybe 20 wrestlers on a card. There are maybe 2 or 3 referees, but there's only one ring announcer. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more difficult to find a position. There are very few ring announce positions out compared, even though the slots for wrestlers and referees are slim, they're slimmer for an announcer. So, you must be good at what you do because, you're working. So that's excellent. The other thing is to complete your education. To be sure you have a second plan. You always need to, hope and work for the best, but be prepared for the worst. You need to protect yourself. And that also will give you more, independence. So those are the 2 most important things. Work as much as you can and have a backup plan.
Well,
Beautiful.
And you had mentioned dressing in the separate from the wrestlers, and before we got on air, you talked about getting body slammed by High Chief Peter Maivia. I'm going to guess that was all planned, wasn't it?
No, that was not planned. That was High Chief Peter Maivia having a good time.
Yeah.
That would have been The Rock's grandfather. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So what happens if a young ring announcer does mess up something and the proper etiquette for apologizing to the wrestler?
Give me a for instance. What was messed up?
Let's say that you mispronounced a name or a hometown. You called out the wrong hometown, or on your card that the promoter gave you, it says that so and so's coming out first. You introduce them, and it's the wrong person. Things happen in show business all the time like that. So
okay, let's take your first example. I would say you need to do your homework in the sense that you review the unless it's a wrestler that you work with all the time. It doesn't hurt to, check in with them before the show, review the information that you have. If you're unsure about how it's pronounced, answer it, and then that will cut out those kinds of errors. If you make that kind of error, you just, very simply apologize afterwards. And if the wrong guy comes out first and you've been told, differently, just to make it clear, I would just mention to the wrestlers, look, this is what I was told. So there's nothing you can do about that. But today with music and, you probably could catch that. That's probably not going to happen too often. If it makes you more secure about things, maybe you just wait till you see the guy before you start introducing him.
Well, that actually happened to me my very first time in the ring. It was written on the card incorrectly, and I did catch it as soon as I saw the guy walk out. So that is one of the things that I do, and it's not happened since, luckily. So yes.
Here's something else, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and I experienced it around the ring recently at a promotion that brought me in. As a ring announcer, you are a focal point. And after you introduce the participants and you go sit at ringside, your responsibility hasn't ended. Your responsibility, I believe, is to continue to watch the match and react to the match as any fan would. One of my pet peeves is to see a ring announcer introduce a match, sit at ringside and start talking to the guy he's with, not paying attention to the match. Because what that says to me, what that communicates to me is that enthusiasm that you just gave to that introduction it's fake, because you really don't care. You're just there to be in the spotlight. That's a pet peeve of mine. So I'll add that one too.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Put your phone away. Act like you're excited to be there. I try to when somebody hits a big move, react to it and kind of sell it for them, like, wow, I'm super excited that just happened, or, oh my, is he well or not? So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And my weekly spot that I do, I'm kind of up on a stage, so people are looking at me anyway, so I always have to keep that in mind.
Sure. I always have felt that from the moment that I leave, when I get to a venue, from the moment I leave my car, I'm representing the promotion. Until the moment I get back in my car and I leave.
Amen, brother. That's old school.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm very old school.
Hey, that's the only school that counts, brother, is the old school. Hey, well, Gary.
I want to remind our listeners to go to Amazon.com, check out Body Slam's Memoirs of a Wrestling Pitchman. Hit up Gary on Facebook at Gary Michael Cappetta. As he said, 2 P's and 2 T's. Q, what else you got for Mr. Cappetta?
I just want to say you can only find this kind of intelligent conversation and people who are iconic in the sport of professional wrestling on the AngryMarks.com podcast at the Undisputed Wrestling Show. And Mr. Cappetta, I personally, as a fan, and as just really can't tell you enough how much it meant to me to have you on the show tonight. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to meeting all the fans of NWA Mid-South this weekend in Dyersburg. So, folks, come on out, and if you've heard the podcast, let me know, and we'll take a picture together and we'll put it up on my Facebook page.
Yeah, Dyersburg is a great wrestling community. It has been for a very long time. And lately, Gary, it's seen a real resurgence in wrestling. So I'm glad they thought enough and they were smart enough to bring you in because, a guy like you adds credibility to anything he touches. So they're doing the right thing. Thanks so much, sir. Gary. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
It was a joy. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Okay. Good night. God bless. We'll talk soon.
Good night.
Night. Wow. What a great guy.
Yeah. Is Gary still on?
No, he just left.
Oh, we should have had him say the Undisputed Wrestling Show and put it on a loop.
Well, now you think about it.
Well, yeah.
It's the first guy I've ever heard you say, let's have him put him on a loop.
Well,
I'm friends with him on Facebook. I get him call and do it.
We're both big marks for him. So
I'm a huge mark for him, dude.
I know.
Maybe no wrestler in the whole world, but Gary Michael Cappetta, oh hell yeah, brother.
Hey, Q, before I ask you what's going on, I do want to send a shout out to our buddy Jeremy Seabolt. He's got a big 2-night event coming up, February 27th, which is a Saturday, and then Sunday, February 28th. The first night is going to be in Warsaw, Indiana. The second night is in Valparaiso, Indiana. He's got a huge card coming up, and with our buddy Drew Skills, with Congo Kong, with Officer Rod Street, with Big Russ Jones, Lightning Bolt Jackson, and a couple of guys that he's helped us secure guests on. Robbie E is going to be there both nights, and
beautiful.
Just announced today, appearing on our show the Tuesday before those big shows on February 23rd. We've got Demolition, Axe, and Smash coming up, and he's going to have them on both those shows in Warsaw and Valpo. So shout out to Smash Funk Promotion and that's Smash Mouth Pro Wrestling and Functified Entertainment. They're co-promoting those shows. So big shout out to Jeremy Seabolt for helping us with that and for running these huge shows.
Yeah, and it's a great thing, and I appreciate it, Jeremy. I go back a long way with Demolition, Axe, and so it's going to be an exciting time to have him on the show. And I really appreciate it, Jeremy, for all you're doing for the show. And if we can give you a plug anytime, you just let us know, brother. We got your back.
Yeah, and this is our last show of January, which it's been a huge month. We just had Gary Michael Cappetta on, and here in a few minutes we're going to have Randy the Pimp Taylor on. February is going to be amazing as well. On the 2nd, which is Groundhog's Day, is Stevie Ray of Harlem Heat and a great wrestling author, Scott Teal, will be on. So they're going to have a bunch of amazing stories, and I can't wait for Stevie Ray to call me a fruity booty. On the 9th, we've got from Ring of Honor and former NFL star Moose will be on. Moose. As I mentioned, on the 16th, we're going to have TNA star Robbie E. And then on February 23rd, my favorite tag team of all time. I've had a chance to meet them a couple times, and they still scare the heck out of me. Demolition, Axe, and Smash will be on. So it's going to be an amazing February here on the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We once again want to thank Jeremy Seabolt, and obviously we want to thank our good friend and executive producer of the show, Rick Craig, for helping out with those guests.
Yeah, the Prophet's doing a great job for us behind the scenes, and the longer he's off the air, the more I think he should be off the air, and I only say that because he's doing such a great job behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So before we got on the air, we were talking. We haven't talked to each other in a while.
It's been a minute.
And speaking of not talking for a while, joining us on the line about 5 minutes ago is one Morningstar Will Huckabee.
Oh, what's up, Morningstar?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
We can. What's happening, bro?
All right, I got a new mic set up and stuff, man. So I just wanted to check. I didn't get a chance to test it before the show, but I heard you saying, Zane, about how awesome next week is going to be and how great the month of February is going to be. But we also have to remember that not only next week do we have Stevie Ray, but it's also my birthday.
Whoa!
You were born on Groundhog's Day?
Huh? Well, technically the next day is my birthday, but I'm celebrating all week because I'm special.
Okay, that works for me.
Stevie Ray has the honor of talking to me, on my birthday.
Your birthday week.
Same difference, man.
Your birthday eve.
Yeah, birthday eve. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. What have you been up to, Morningstar?
Actually, I really haven't been up to a whole lot. I'm basically, I'm supposed to have a show this weekend, but because of all the snow and ice and the inclement weather and stuff, a lot of shows down here in the South got canceled. Because unlike a lot of Northerners and stuff, we really care about our fans, and we don't want people to get hurt on the way to the show.
That's funny.
So, other than that, I really didn't do anything this weekend. I just went to the gym, trained, actually kind of hung out with a really good mentor of mine, Steve Carino and stuff. And then, like everybody else in the wrestling world, I had to watch the Royal Rumble.
Well, hey, before you talk about that, when you saw Steve Carino, did he mention that he met me the last week?
Yeah, we actually talked about that, man. I had to tell you, the conversation and stuff off the air.
No way. He did not say that he met me.
Huh?
He did not.
I mentioned that y'all were both in the same place. I was like, hey, my buddy Zane was up there. He was up there with my buddy Zane and stuff. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. So I was trying to talk him into coming to the show. But, Steve has his own show and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So he's very leery about going on other podcasts and everything. But okay. I'm slowly chiseling away at it.
Okay, awesome. We'll talk about it more off the air. I'm sorry to interrupt you, buddy.
I'll get him on there and call his mom.
Ha!
I didn't even think about that, Q-Ball. His mom loves me, and so does his dad. Like, I should just talk to him and make him do on the show.
Yeah, I've known them guys for 20 years. I'll call his mom tomorrow. I'll get him on the show. He won't have any choice. Mama C says go on the show. He's going on the show. That's plain and simple.
Well, before we talk about Royal Rumble and our reaction to that, Q, what have you been up to? How's training going?
It's going good. I got two great guys who are going to debut on April 9th at the next mall show. We're pretty excited about that. They're going to do great things. I think in 2016 in the wrestling business, I've trained them to death. I couldn't train them any harder. They're good guys. They listen. The last 2 weeks, besides training with me 3 days a week, they've been meeting between 11 and 12 at night when they get off work and training until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So they're working really hard. I'm excited about that. And so that's going good, and the Evolution Wrestling Academy is going well. And the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling League is going really well, too. So
excellent. Either of you guys have any events coming up this coming week?
Yeah, I do. I'm mowing my lawn Saturday at 4 o'clock.
Okay, I'm glad you got that scheduled out.
Yeah, thanks. That's it for me.
Okay. What about you, Will? Got any events coming up this week?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I got two. Actually, a bunch of stuff. I had a really busy weekend for some reason this week. Friday night, we have Premier Wrestling Federation down there in Cuba, North Carolina, run by Steve Carino. I have a 2 out of 3 falls match against the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling League trainer, Bobby Wolford. So, I'm really looking forward to that one. And then Saturday morning, I'm doing I have a seminar. I'm doing the Tommy Dreamer seminar down in Hubert, North Carolina. And then as soon as that is over with, I'm wrestling the big man Lance Erickson at NWA Mid-Atlantic for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Championship.
Well, that's awesome. Who's the seminar with on Saturday?
Tommy Dreamer.
What's a guy like Dreamer going to teach you? How to lose? Seriously.
Oh.
I've been looking for Tommy Dreamer for 10 years, and he ain't stepped up to the plate. So I'm just saying.
All right. Hey. Q,
I'm setting right and ready anytime he's ready to go.
Q, you see what happened to that kid, at NXT when he was talking jobbers and stuff. I don't want you getting banned from the locker room, Q-Ball.
I'm going to be there this week. You don't have to worry about that. Last time he wrestled C.W. Anderson and Trevor Lee and Matt and Jeff Hardy, I got right in his face and told him, you son of a gun, I was with you guys for 6 months. You gave me one whole match. Dreamer, you're on my hit list, brother. I don't make no bones about it. I don't care. What's he going to do? Give me a match? Get his ass whooped again? That's all. I'll stretch that boy like a rubber band. Let me not digress, though. I have tons of respect for Tommy Dreamer. I'm just kidding. He's a great guy. Would I love to get in the ring with him? It's on my bucket list. Him and Adam Pearce.
All right. Well, Will just mentioned the kid down at NXT, Josh, and I can't remember his last name. I don't think I need to remember his last name. He won the Tough Enough game show.
All right.
Then he went on social media and had tweeted hashtag social jobbers in reference to Heath Slater, Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas, and Adam Rose, their group, the Social Outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken, Kevin Owens, I think, was the first to respond and talk some shit about Josh, saying, look at the big vet using insider terms.
Right.
And then he blocked him on Twitter. And then a couple other people responded, but the one I think that Will was alluding to was Cody Rhodes, as the Stardust character, tweeted, have fun dressing in the hallway, rookie, or something.
That's exactly true too.
I have my own theories about this, but I want to hear it from the two wrestling veterans. And so, Will, since you brought it up first, why don't you talk about your thoughts on that first?
Right.
Oh, you talking
Let me not go back a long way. I got tons of respect for him. Would I like to wrestle? It's on my bucket list.
Whoa, we're on some weird loop.
What?
Will, what do you have to say about Josh from Tough Enough?
You know, here's my thing about the whole situation is that I think the kid, first of all, was an idiot. He was stupid. When you are just getting to the company, you're just getting to the business or whatever, there is a modicum of respect that has to be paid. And saying what he said is something you might say with your buddies in the car, you know, or in a hotel room, but you never get on social media and you never disrespect guys who are already there, who are where you're trying to be at. Most importantly, and to call them the social jobbers, especially in today's world and stuff, you know, in my opinion, the way he said it was very disrespectful. He might have said it as a joke or whatever. You know, Cue Ball calls me a jobber, or like you just said, he just was talking, and basically, for lack of a better term, or for lack of words, was calling Tommy Dreamer a jobber. That's okay because they're friends. You know, they've been up and down the road together. That's okay, but for to call guys that you've never met before, that you haven't done business with, to call them jobbers and stuff is so disrespectful. I hope that they don't kick him off the business. I hope that they teach him a lesson, as Cue Ball would say, the old school way.
What are your thoughts, Q?
I don't know. I agree the same way. You know, when you spend 20 or 30 years in this business and you make tons of friends, you can pick on each other. But when a new guy comes through the door and he starts laying down stuff like he did, I mean, it's not, you can't pick on somebody if you're brand new in the business. You need to shut your mouth, open your ears, and listen for 3 years and not say anything. And maybe after 3 years, you might learn the right to bust on a couple people in the locker room. But it takes years, hundreds of matches. I mean, 10, 12, 15 years, 1,000 matches before you're in that category where you can bust on another guy and people know you're kidding. And this guy's definitely not there yet. And I think all he did is put himself deep under the 8 ball in a sort of cue ball term.
Yeah, I got your reference. Haha.
I got a question here real quick. Is it just me, or does anybody else really think that Tough Enough is just a pox on WWE and anybody who enters that thing? I mean, seriously, what good has ever come out of Tough Enough?
When they had John Morrison, India, the Boogeyman, you know, there's been a lot of actual legitimate good guys and great talents that had come out of Tough Enough. They haven't really had any winners come out of Tough Enough that did something. But people but actual wrestlers who've been on the show, who got the exposure, who got the actual look of WWE, they've had a lot of guys that actually done that show, that actually done something in the business.
I don't know. I don't think it's really done anything. I mean, it may have done something positive for those guys, but it hasn't done anything positive for WWE. I mean, every single winner, where are they at? They're nowhere. They are absolutely nowhere. And the last couple of them have just been so absolute embarrassments for WWE. I don't ever want to see Tough Enough on the air again.
I don't mind Tough Enough, Kev. I don't know how T-Ball feels about it. I don't too much mind it, you know. My thing is, because there are guys, for instance, like my buddy Kevin Tyler from West Virginia, who has a great look. He reminds me of a Von Erich, really. I wish a lot of people would look at him. But he got the media exposure and the actual look, you know, an actual look from legitimate vets and stuff. And hopefully they'll give him a call up. Hopefully they'll use him as an extra whenever they're in West Virginia or whatever. So I like the fact that they have Tough Enough. But even if the guys and ladies who actually win it don't do anything, for the actual talent, the actual wrestlers, the actual workers, the people who are the boys and the ladies that actually belong in this business, the ones that do good look and get the exposure really deserve it, and I'm glad that they get it.
All right. My thoughts on the situation was that Josh was an idiot for doing it. I don't think it was a work, and I can see them doing like they did for Danny Puter, where they threw him into something and he got his ass kicked. And I can see that happening and then them releasing him. So those are my thoughts. Anybody else have any other thoughts about that? Okay.
I have a question. Why? And Q-Ball, maybe you know better than that because you've been up there. Don't they tell these guys that, when they get signed, that there are things they can and cannot say? Like, isn't their social media constantly being monitored and stuff?
Well, they talk to them about social media responsibility, and Facebook's not a good idea, and go with Twitter. But, when I was up there, none of this stuff was prevalent. They would just tell you to shut up and do your job. But it's changed, Now it truly is. They let them be on Twitter, but they don't want them to be on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Big news out of Royal Rumble. The premiere of AJ Styles in the WWE. Q, did you have a chance to watch that?
I didn't, but I knew he was coming in. I knew when he was coming in, and, he's a good dude, great worker. I'm glad he came in.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Will?
All right. I will be completely honest. I completely and totally marked out. The part inside me that's still a wrestling fan that still loves professional wrestling was super excited. Of course, they had the rumors saying that he was going to be in the Royal Rumble. But of course, nobody really knew yes or no if he was going to be in the Royal Rumble. The fact that he came out at number 3 completely blew my mind. I immediately got on Twitter and stuff and looked at my Twitter feed, and that's all. Everybody was basically saying the same thing, like, holy shit, AJ Styles is number 3. I was so happy to see one of the best, if not the best wrestler in the world right now in the WWE ring. Super excited. Super stoked. When he was standing face to face with Chris Jericho, completely, that was like one of my dream matches when I was younger, when I first got into the business. It was one of those, what if this guy was in this company and they got to actually work. So I was super excited about AJ Styles being in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I thought he had a great showing, and I thought it was perfect that the person that eliminated him was Kevin Owens. Can you imagine the reaction that they would have gotten if Roman Reigns had eliminated him, or Big Show, or somebody like that? It would have been Daniel Bryan all over again. So can you guys think of anybody that would have been better to eliminate him other than Kevin Owens?
Maybe Dean Ambrose, just because he's so... Dean Ambrose, maybe Chris Jericho, because, we all know his history, watching his history and stuff, Chris Jericho doesn't mind being the most hated guy in WWE. So I think that's probably was a job that they could have given to him also.
I'd agree on Jericho, because then that would have made sense for their match on Raw.
Okay. All right. So went on. Triple H was number 30. No one was shocked about that. Triple H ended up winning. No one was shocked about that. What were you guys' thoughts on Triple H coming out of there as the World Heavyweight Champion? Q, do you have any thoughts on Triple H being the champion right now?
Mr. Carmichael has left the building.
Oh, okay.
He didn't want to talk about the Royal Rumble.
It got silent there for a second, and then I'm looking at the list, it's like, oh, he's gone.
Okay.
He'd rather hang up than talk about WWE. All right, well, since Q was gone, I'll say what I thought. All right, Zane, how's that feel?
Sure.
I actually like the fact that Triple H is the champion right now. Excuse me, the talent roster at WWE is so shallow right now because of the injuries. Their lack of star power right now is really showing. And their lack of ability to build stars right now is really showing. They need to put it on a guy who is credible, somebody who doesn't need the title to elevate them, and somebody that they can kind of plug in when needed. And I think that, with all the injuries they had, with all the storylines that they wanted to do but they can't do or whatever, I think that Triple H was a good fill. And I don't think there was anybody else in that Battle Royal that could have seen winning that would have made sense.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Kev?
I agree with Will completely.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to have the only dissenting opinion then. It's just so funny how I think Triple H is trying to rebuild his reputation in the pro wrestling business. starting in NXT, giving these young guys a shot, and then all of a sudden, at the age of 46, he's got his 14th title run.
Okay, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, I was excited. Dean Ambrose might have gotten a shot. Triple H doesn't have to have the title to be a drawing power at WrestleMania. They could have worked it where it was Triple H versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania without the title. So I was a little disappointed.
Okay, now Zane, to say something about that, because the first thing he brought up was his age. It wasn't until, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and them really got to the business and started getting over that anybody under the age of 40 was even allowed to have the main strap. Just because, in wrestling, as far as wrestling psychology and stuff goes, it takes like 10, 15 years to really have the wrestling acumen and psychology to be able to carry a company and to be the top guy, to be a Hulk Hogan, to be a Bruno Sammartino. Most of Ric Flair I want to say Ric Flair didn't get his first actual NWA title until he was in his late 30s, almost 40. The majority of his title reigns, he was in his 40s and 50s. Same thing with Harley Race. Same thing with Hogan and all of them. A lot of those guys were in their late 30s, early 40s before they got their first shot at the top of the card. So if this was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Triple H would just now be getting there. I don't think that there's nobody really. I don't think that Dean Ambrose is a top guy. I think that Dean Ambrose is more like a Macho Man or Mr. Perfect. Like he's the guy, the top mid card guy that you work with before you go to the top of the card. He doesn't. He's just missing that one thing that's stopping him from being a star. Not saying that he's not good. Not saying he's not great. It's just in my opinion. I can never see them putting the WWE on his shoulders and saying run with the ball. Same as
Could you have imagined Seth Rollins in that position?
Yes, because Seth Rollins in ROH, when he was Tyler Black, before he actually got the ROH title, was showing glimpses of genius. He's a great talker. When you allow him to talk and you allow him to be an arrogant heel and stuff, Seth Rollins can be good. Now, did I think that he was going to be the best out of the three? No, I didn't. I didn't think he was going to be better than, I didn't think he was going to be a better champion than Roman Reigns. But I really figured they were going to have Roman Reigns be a heel and give him a manager like Paul Heyman or something because we all knew the guy couldn't talk. But in my opinion, there was nobody else in that Royal Rumble, nobody else in the roster really that can carry the company right now.
You know what? I'm going to disagree with that. I think there's 50 people in that locker room that could carry the company right now if WWE wanted them to. I think the big problem here is that you've got a team of creative writers that can't write a convincing storyline that gets these guys over. Because if you had a good convincing storyline, you could get any one of these guys over. That's not a problem. You just need the writing to do it. The one thing that aggravates me, I'm not so much upset over Triple H holding the title. What I'm upset over is that they screwed up Roman Reigns again this year. Because you can't have a guy start at number 1 and then go sit out half the match and then come back in and expect the fans are going to accept him as being the guy that goes over and gets the win. That's some heelless bullshit that fans would boo any day. So it's no surprise that the fans ended up booing Roman Reigns for that because it's bullshit. It would have been much better if they left him in there at number 1 and he spent half the night sitting in the corner like Chris Jericho did. And then he comes back and wins it because he didn't leave the ring and at least he was there all through the match. He would have earned some respect out of that crowd. He may have not earned the respect out of all the crowd, but he wouldn't have gotten nowhere near the boos that he did when he came back. And I think this was a bad mistake by WWE and it actually sets Roman Reigns back.
Well, Zane, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How excited were you when Sami Zayn came back? In my opinion, the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, their chemistry is so spot on, man. Like, whenever them two are in the ring, you automatically want to pay attention. What do you think?
I was excited about it. It wasn't a surprise at all. There was very little in the Rumble that was surprising. I think they should have held him off of NXT until he made his Rumble appearance, so that way it would have been a real shock. I thought that once they were both in the ring together, it was great. It was, these guys have been going at it for 10 plus years, and it's amazing. And I hope it leads to something, whether it's down in NXT or up on the main card. But it just wasn't a surprise. So I was excited. I was happy about it, but I didn't mark out for it. Does that make sense?
I would also like to point out during the pay-per-view that I definitely said that Sasha Banks was going to make her return at the Royal at this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I did remember saying that.
Oh, and happy birthday to Miss Banks today, too.
Damn.
I'm disappointed that they didn't do the NXT Rumble for the winner to get in the Royal Rumble like they did last year. That was awesome.
They've done it for a couple years because Bo Dallas was in that a few years ago.
Yeah, this year the pre-show match was what? The Dudley Boys and the Ascension and
Sandow and Darren Young, and the winners were Jack Swagger and Mark Henry.
Yeah, you could have thrown those guys in the Rumble at any spot anyway.
Right.
But I thought it was refreshing that one of the NXT guys would get a shot to get into the Rumble. I mean, how incredible would it have been to see Finn Balor come out of that and then come into the Rumble?
Or somebody like Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
They did that. That was how Rusev made his debut on the main roster, was at the Royal Rumble, and he did good job. They kept him off TV for a couple weeks, and then had him on there as a regular guy. So yeah, there's definitely a spot for that. Most people know Sami Zayn already because of his U.S. Open Challenge with John Cena. So it would have been nice to have somebody, a new fresh face to make an appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't do that, so they disappointed me.
Yeah.
And then I'm even more disappointed about how the two of them just got suckered. I mean, they were out in like 15, 30 seconds.
I was really happy with the tag team match. I love the New Day. I'm sorry, y'all. I love the New Day. Like, I love their match. It's so great.
New Day rocks.
Huh?
New Day rocks, but they're Xavier Woods is trying to pull them back a little bit and make them be more heels. And he did a great thing where the crowd, I can't remember if it was at Rumble or if it was on Raw, but the crowd was chanting, play the trombone or something, and then he just threw it down on the ground. Said, no, I'm not going to do that for you. So he's trying to make them a little more heel, but I still think they've got to either commit to being faces or commit to being heels. Can't play it both ways. So, one thing I want to touch on, I know we've got our second guest calling in soon, but one line that I loved from Raw last night, when The Rock was in the ring and he said, I don't know who that other black guy is, talking about Byron Saxton, which was a funny line in itself. But then when Xavier Woods came out and said, that's Byron Saxton, you should watch the product. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was a perfect comeback to these part-time guys. They should follow up. They should do their research. And I know it was just a comedy bit, but I still thought that was great. You should watch the product. You should know what's going on here. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness, when that was said, I don't know if you guys follow Cedric Alexander on like Twitter or Facebook, whatever, but like a lot of guys got super upset because he kept saying that black guy, that black guy, that black guy. And it's like, really, like, how in the world can you commentate a match if you don't know the talent's name? It's like, oh, who's that? Oh, that's that black guy. A lot of guys, like a lot of black guys especially, that I'm friends with got super offended because of those comments. So, I think that what Xavier Woods said was, part what was written and part shoot, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was my line of the night. So.
If it was a shoot, good on him, because you know what? I despise The Rock. I can't stand The Rock. I mean, I am going to give him his due as his wrestler. I am going to give him his due as a man. But as an individual involved in professional wrestling, he is a megaton of suck. Man, you know what? I mean, I wasn't feeling good last night. So I actually ended up sleeping through Raw. But when The Rock came on to do his promo, I had it on in the background. I started dreaming about The Rock, and I dreamt every single segment. I don't know how it actually, I don't know what the visual was like on TV. All I have is The Rock's words and the visuals that were going through my brain as I was waking up out of my sleep. And he just come through, and he was just so fucking dismissive of every fucking body. I mean, he clowned them all. And the only thing I could imagine, have you guys ever seen the play Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat?
I have not.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay. You know the scene where we get around to introducing Joseph, and Joseph starts talking about all his hopes and his dreams and his visions. And every time he mentions something about it, you see his brothers in the background, and they're just kind of gnawing at the bit and pounding their fist into the palm of their hands, just ready to fucking pounce on him. But they know they can't do anything because Daddy's watching. That's the vision that went through my head. I mean, telling the Miz to go park his truck, I could just see the Miz standing behind him like, the fuck? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? You know, and then talking about Lana and Rusev, standing there in front of Rusev and talking about his wife like that. I mean, like, oh my God, how much fucking lack of respect do you fucking have? I mean, I know The Rock thinks he's got balls of fucking steel, you know, but to go out there and fucking flaunt it like that, this is why I can't stand The Rock. This is why, you know, I can't stand him as a part-timer. He can't dedicate himself as a full-timer, and to come on and to act like this just because he's the fucking Rock and the show's in fucking Miami. Fuck that goddamn bullshit. Get that fucking pie-eating jabroni off my goddamn television. New Day saved this segment. Absolutely.
You can't tell how you really feel.
Oh, I'll tell you how I really feel. The Rock, of course, is the man who said he would never leave professional wrestling, and then he left and he didn't come back for 7 years. And then when he came back, he said he would never leave, and then we didn't see him for 6 more months. And then when he finally comes back, he gets into one fucking match, and afterwards, he says, oh, I hurt myself, and I'm done. And he completely no-shows Vince McMahon and the fans again the night after fucking WrestleMania. Give me a fucking break. Take your ass back to Hollywood. You make good movies. Keep making good movies. Get the fuck off my wrestling TV, you old fuck. There's plenty of kids who are lined up, ready to take your fucking spot. You're not worth the money. It disgusts me that Vince McMahon keeps bringing this asshole back.
All right. So let's move on from Rock. Another great segment on Raw last night. Well, no, it was a horrible segment. Social Outcasts are in the ring, and I thought it was amazing that Heath Slater made a callback to Flo Rida, which, you know, it was all a work, you know, but came in Flo Rida. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Flo Rida?
Yes.
Yes, you're pronouncing it right.
What's that?
I said, yeah, you're pronouncing it right, Zane. Okay. I'm proud of you.
He came into the ring, and the Social Outcasts challenged him to freestyle, which it's a work, so we know that it wasn't a real freestyle. Bo Dallas did some hokey white man rapping, stuff that I say to my kids all the time, you know. My name is Zane, and I'm here to say I love this beer in a major way. Okay, so that was pretty reminiscent of what Bo Dallas said. And it was funny, and it was hokey, and it was good. And then Flo Rida, who had been prepared for this rap battle, even though it was impromptu, we all know that it was prepared, came out and did the worst rap I've ever heard. And this guy, correct me if I'm wrong, he gets paid to rap, correct?
No, he gets paid to make music. What he does is not considered hip-hop. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So I can't wait to hear Stevie J talk about this on Thursday AMP if he gets a chance to. Kev, if you can let him know that I want to hear his thoughts on Flo Rida. That was awful. What did you think about it, Will?
I was thinking the same exact thing. I was like, okay, this is going to be, really hokey, and there's this little white boy rap, and then Flo Rida can like fully destroy him. And then, yeah, Bo Dallas's raps was hokey, and it was basically what you would expect from Mike Rotundo's son.
Right.
But then, like you said, when Flo Rida went to go rap, and it was the worst rap in the history of rap, that was the worst freestyle ever. And to know that they paid him they probably seriously overpaid him for that appearance. And he did such a horrible job. I was like, either this guy is seriously drunk or seriously high, or he just doesn't give a shit. The best thing that happened about that, the best thing that kept me come out of that entire segment is all the amazing memes that popped up on social media today because of it. When people are like,
we posted one here on the Undisputed Wrestling Show.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to see that?
Yes, I did. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's just one of like maybe 30 different memes I've seen off of that segment.
It says when your game is so strong you can't even throw a fixed rap battle.
Exactly. I like it. Of course, I like the Social Outcast, and I think maybe because of the whole controversy and stuff, I've actually started paying more attention to him. I've always liked Bo Dallas, and I've always liked Heath Slater. But now I think because of the controversy, I'm actually paying more attention to him and stuff, and not so much taking them as a hokey or this is a thrown together group. I'm starting to wonder, like, is everything they're doing with Heath Slater and Bo Dallas like seriously start out premeditated and lead to like some huge big picture that we won't see until it actually happens?
Well, I meant to say something about this earlier when we were talking about the social jobber thing, but Heath Slater has been in the WWE since 2010. He's been making steady paychecks for the past 6 years. So obviously something is going on with that. So, do we need to give a call to our next guest? I thought he was calling in.
Yes, we do need to give a call.
Okay, let's go ahead. Hello, this is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. Is this Randy the Pimp Taylor?
It is indeed. How are you doing, sir?
Well, I am doing just fantastic. Happy birthday to you, by the way.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I am one of the hosts. I am the Bearded Wonder, Zane Paisley. And also with us, we've got our esteemed producer, Killa Kev. And we've got wrestling out of North Carolina, Will the Morning Star Huckabee. So how are you this evening, sir?
I am doing well, thank you very much. Just got home from the gym, a little downtime, getting ready to head to work tonight. But at the moment, doing well, thank you.
Are you out there on the making sure the girls are on the corner?
Actually, no. Those days are actually past. But no, those were good days. Those were good days. Well, thank you, sir.
Well, I know a little about you through my good friend the Sign Guy, but one of the things that since you're the first time on our show tonight, give us a little info on how you got started in this crazy world of professional wrestling.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I've been in quick heads up. I've been in it 30 years. This is my 30th year. Started back as a kid, just a fan, watching on TV every Saturday morning. When come on, I'm up here in Washington by the Seattle area, and we would get to Portland wrestling. Donna wants promotions at that time, and Dutch Savage, Jimmy Snuka, Roddy Piper, Rip Oliver, the Grappler, those guys coming up, and then they would have Kurt Hennig come through and things like that. So that's how I got hooked on it every Saturday. And then they would come to Seattle every other Wednesday, and guys from Atlanta would come in. They would bring 4 of their top guys. They'd have Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA, Nikita Koloff, Ivan Koloff, things like that would roll in with them and work with the guys from Portland. So as I got older, my dad and I would go over to Seattle and buy the $5 tickets, and you'd sit down there and you'd have the time of your life, And at that point, I said, man, this is something I would love to do. you know, and so 8, 10, 12, you know, that was what I was enjoying. And then, I was an athlete through high school, baseball, basketball, football, never wrestled, which I learned to regret later on. And then, played some college football, a small college All-American, and offensive guard, 195 pounds, and playing against guys 240, 250.
What school did
so I
you
was
go to?
athletic. I went to a little junior college here in Olympic College in Bremerton, Washington.
Cool.
And yeah, and so we were playing like the University of Washington junior varsity, and then we played other junior colleges around the state and out of Oregon, things like that. And so as soon as I got done with that, I was working, but wrestling was still in my blood. You know, I had to do it, had to find some way. And so then after my dad passed, my buddy and I kept going over to Seattle like every other Wednesday. And this one time, the guys from Portland was up, and I'm sitting in like the 5th row. And Diamond Timothy Flowers, who now goes by Street Fighter Timothy Flowers out of Canada, just he's a legend through Canada, he's in the Canadian Hall of Fame. He was wrestling, and the typical heel, I mean, he played the heel great. And I'm sitting in the 5th row, I got a couple hot dogs with me, man, and he's coming through, and I just seen him on TV the previous Saturday, and I said, oh, that's so it, you know. And so I sit down and I threw a hot dog, and it zinged right by his head, his back to us, and it zinged right by his head. He turns around, and he looks through and everybody's pointing out, you know, and, oh, my God. And so the usher's on his way. We called the usher over, and the usher's talking to him, and he comes over to me, and I told my buddy, man, I'll see you at the car, man. And so then we're walking towards the door, and he said, no, you got to go this way. Flowers wants to talk to you after the match. I thought, man, I am dead. I am dead. So then after Flowers puts in his 20, 25 minutes, he comes walking by, and he soft looks at me and says, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you in a minute. So he goes in, and in about 15 minutes, somebody comes and gets me and takes me to the locker room. I'm walking by in the shower room. You know, there's Ric Flair getting dressed, Dusty Rhodes getting dressed, all these cats getting dressed, all the guys from Portland that I'm watching every Saturday. You know, as a young man, I'm in heaven at that point. Oh my God, you know, this is awesome, you know. And so then Flowers comes out of I sit down, and Flowers comes out of the shower, and he says, man, I see you here every week, man. He goes, you want in this business or not? And it took me about a half a second to say, oh, yeah, you know. And so he gave me a number to get a hold of. He says, call this number and tell him that I told you to call this number. I said, all right, great. So I'm out of there, and my buddy was all stoked. You know, man, what do you have to ask? Man, just, that's my ticket. That's my ticket. So about a week later, I see an ad in the paper locally here about training wrestlers. And so I called him up. And it just happened to be that he was training wrestlers that were going up to Canada and working up there. The same organization that Flowers was working in was All-Star Wrestling with Al Tomko was the promoter at the time. And so I would go out there and train on Saturdays, and the guys coming up from Portland would stop by and do a quick workout on their way. And so within probably about 3 weeks of bumps and training and getting my feet under me, and one of the guys said, man, you need to come up. You're ahead of schedule. Just come on up. And at the time, I didn't have any gear. And so one of the gentlemen, he had an extra pair of boots, size 11, and I wear a 9.5. And he said, man, you're gonna need some gear. You're gonna need some gear. So I bought the pair of boots, man, and stuffed it with tissue paper and rolled up there, and we go in. They did TV tapings on Monday and Tuesday at DC TV in Burnaby, British Columbia. And so we drive up there, 3.5, 4 hour drive, and Al Tomko says, all right, well, kid, let's see what you got. So my first match, I'm out there with Sir Joseph Cagle, and basically it went great. And then afterwards, we did 2 tapings a night. And so then my next match was Ivan Gorky, and a big old Russian cat, man, and he talked in the Russian broken English accent, and he calls back it up. And I said, man, okay, big backdrop, man, my feet, I flew across the air, and I landed my feet halfway through the ropes, and he's picking me up, and he's chuckling, he says, guess what? You know, and obviously, you know, when you come off the ropes, you see where the position was coming. I knew what was up, man, and another huge backdrop and everything. And so afterwards, I get in the locker room. He comes up and he says, "Oh, you fly so good." I turn around, you're still in there. Had to do it again. I felt great. Thank you. So that was a Monday. So then drive home for 4 hours, and I work during the day and then get off early so I can drive back up there again, another 4 hours for another two tapings. And I walk in the locker room the second night up there in the studio, and everybody's battling to see who gets to work me, because I put them over so good the first night, my first couple matches, and so I was in. And so at that point, and I guess I worked Flowers the second night, and he was the champion at the time, so everything was great. So then every Saturday I'd pack my bags and roll up there to where they were doing their weekly live shows at the fairgrounds up there in Cloverdale. And now Tom, I said, "Well, kid, I just don't really know tonight. We already got the card set, but I like you coming up, So then he'd make sure I was still coming up for the TV tapings and everything else. So, finally, after about a month, still going up there every Saturday, packing the bags, up there, but I sat underneath the bleachers and I watched every match and I learned. And that's what I was told. Sit down, shut up, and observe. Listen and observe. And that's where you're going to learn. And I did. And after about a month, man, Tom says, "Kid, we're gonna give you a shot tonight. We're gonna put you on and open the match. I want you to go 10 minutes." And everything went smooth, man. I come back, here's my payoff, and he goes, "Your book, you're on every Saturday." That's so sweet, And in my mind, I'd made it, I'd actually got paid to wrestle, but I knew my spot, I knew my role, I knew what was going on. And so then probably within another month, Flowers says, "What do you do for, can you get off? Can you go on the road? You look like you want to be in this business." And I said, "Yes, I do." And at the time I was working for Toys R Us, I was in management. And so at that point they gave me time off. So, when you're in town, you can come back, you can work. And when you're on the road, best of luck to you. And that was that, man. And I was living at the time, Flowers got me on the road, but we were traveling 8 guys to a van and sometimes 10 to a van with all the gear and everything. And we hit the hotel. Everybody thinks it's a life of glamour, man. You're living in a hotel with 6, 8 guys in a room, and I would always take my pillow so I had something of home that I could, and I would first place and I would crawl I'd get the closet. I'd put my pillow on the foot in the closet. I'd keep my feet out, and that was my spot. And wherever I went, I was in the closet. I wasn't going to sleep in the tub in case somebody come in there late night drunk or peeing on you or something, and wasn't going to be 4 to the bed and 4 on, and so I had my spot, and that was it. And living off of $20 Canadian, living on, and living off peanut butter sandwiches and tuna out of a can. And pretty soon I was making more money selling peanut butter sandwiches to the boys than I was on payoffs. But that was life. That was the start. And you got to have a passion, and you got to love it. And so then every night I was learning. Every night I would watch and I would listen. And these guys are all 18, 20-year veterans that I'm traveling with. And in Canada, the fans liked it real and brutal. And they let you know if you weren't up to par. And I just fell right in, even more in love with it. And that was my way of life. I traveled up there for 20 years, as well as coming home and working down here in Portland, for 6 months. But other than that, that was life, man. So that's a quick update on how I got into the business. Flowers never let me forget about the hot dogs zinging by his head.
Well, hey, later on you worked as an enhancement talent for the WWF. Can you tell us about what happened with the Berserker?
Okay, life-changing experience there. And thank God that I'd worked in. Okay, down there it was March. I'll go the day before. March 26th was the day after WrestleMania down there, and Sergeant Slaughter had the title, lost it at WrestleMania, so it was his first night after losing the title, and he was heel, and he had Iron Sheik was his manager at the time when he was heel, and then so then that night on 26th, my first match was against Kurt Hennig for the Intercontinental title, and went out there and had a great match with him. Great match. He come back afterwards and shook my hand, gave me a hug, said, man, that was awesome, man. Thank you very much. And I mean, it flowed. It was awesome. And then the next,
were you marking out? Because that was one of the guys that you mentioned watching when you,
big time, big time, you know, and to hear the comments from him, yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And, then probably about an hour later, I worked, Swatter for another taping, and we went out there and everything went great, you know, and, at the end, the Sheik puts me in the camel clutch and, gets in there and Slaughter's putting the boots to me. He's got the big old army boots, you know, I'm putting boots to me. I got this tread on my forehead, you know, and the camera zooms up close on it because, you know, the Slaughter goes, I'm going to be stiff. I'm going to have to work it, man. I got no issues there, man. He says, all right. So afterwards, man, he comes up and gives me a big hug. He goes, oh my God. He goes, that was the best job anybody's ever done for me in my life. And he goes, I'm going to talk to some people. This is great. Thank you, man. So I go in the shower. At the time, we're all dressing in the hallway down there where we're at. This is in Vegas, you know, and Hogan had his own locker room and the Ultimate Warrior had his own locker room and everybody else dressed in the hallway. Everybody else. So the only two at that time, they had their own locker rooms. And so everybody's in the hallway and we're in shower and I come out and I got, the Animal Steel was sitting next to where my gear was. And, I sit down and, he says, what are you doing for work? And again, I said, well, I'm work for Toys R Us. And he goes, would you like to work for us? I said, again, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. And, so we had one of the standard little 1-year contracts drawn up at that point. And so he explained everything in the contract. This is all the way down. And, signed it, you know, so it was good for a year. Thank God I signed that the night before. Next night, March 27th, we're in Reno, Nevada. There was a huge storm, so everybody had to drive all night long to get to Reno through the snowstorm and everything else. And so I was traveling with Mark Villegas, Michelle Starr is his work name. He now runs All-Star Wrestling in Canada. So he was driving all the way up there. His car. We drove all the way down originally to the shows, and so he was driving. We get to Reno. We don't sort of get checked in. Then we have to go out to the venue and let them know at the venue. So we go and we check into the venue and everything else. And so that night I'm working only once. That's John Nord. And I guess the night before he'd hurt 2 people. And I guess he'd already been told I don't know why they let him work that night. I was told that they were going to fire him after that night. And so everybody was warning me, hey, just watch yourself, be careful out there, don't let him get out of control and everything else. And I said, okay. You know, the guy's like 6'6", 6'8", you know, about 320, and you know, I'm 5'10" and about 200 pounds, and yeah, I'm gonna control that, you know. So basically, I have my job to do. I go out and I do it. We went over everything perfect, you know. The match flowed exactly as we went over everything. Except for come to finish, he was just supposed to pick me up, run me over like an atomic drop me over the ropes. I was supposed to land in a certain position. He was going to hit the ropes twice, come over, drop an elbow on me, put the boots to me, climb back in, and then I get counted out and he wins. We go for the finish. He runs, instead of walking, he runs over and throws me down right at the time the barrier cage they were using were the metal ones like they do at concerts. And that's 10 feet from the ring. He threw me so that when I landed, my right arm was draping over the rail. And the first thing you're taught is when you go out of the ring, you hit and roll because something's going to give. It's either going to be concrete or bones. And concrete isn't going to give. And so there was nowhere for me to hit and roll. And so I landed and I instantly felt the left leg, sharp pain in the knee area. And I just thought, okay, well, there went some ligaments or something. So my first thought was, I got to get to the spot because he's hitting the ropes. I got to get to that spot for the finish. And so I crawl over to the spot just as he's coming over the ropes, lands it, perfect timing, putting the boots to me, and Mr. Fuji was his manager. So I grabbed Fuji, pull him down to me, and said, Fuji, I messed my knee up. So he got him off me and got him back in the ring. And so the guys out of the back had seen it. So they're sending out a bunch of refs to help carry me back. And I'm trying to walk on it, and there's just nothing there. So I get to the back, and I pull the knee pad down, and I could tell it was pretty messed up. And so they would go to the hospital and take all the x-rays, come back and tell me I had a tibial plateau fracture, which is basically disintegrated 3 inches where my tibia connects to the knee. And so at that point, I was out for 18 months. And for 18 months, foot never touched floor. I had originally got home, that was on March 27th, 1991. And I, got home, had the surgery on April Fool's Day, April 1st. They took half my hip, my bone grafted off my left hip, bone grafted the knee together, had 4 2-inch screws holding everything together. I went through 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, physical therapy, without the foot touching the floor. And I would come out of there just in tears, working so hard, and then it hurt so bad. So then that strengthened up for the second surgery where they took the hardware out. Then another 5 days a week, 3 hours a day to strengthen up to go on for the third surgery. That was another 6 months. For the third surgery to take all the bone chips and everything that were floating around. And then another 6 months, was 5 days a week, 3 hours a day to strengthen it up so I could actually start to walk again. So, that was what I went through on that one. But like I said, thank God I signed a contract on that before, so they covered all medical bills. Titan did. Covered all medical bills, which was in excess of about $100,000. All the physical therapy was included in that, as well as paying me off what my contract stated. So, thank God if I'd have been up in, if I'd have been in the independent still, I'd have been so messed up.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have a couple more questions for you, and I know we're running short on time. I wanted to kick
I know, I'm sorry, man. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, no, I wanted to kick it over to Will Huckabee. Will, what do you have for Randy the Pimp Taylor?
First of all, I was going to say thanks for being a guest in the show. And please don't take this as being offensive. I've got to ask you, 30 years of the business, I'm going to take it that you're in your mid-50s. You are in phenomenal shape. You are in phenomenal shape for a man of your age and stuff.
Thanks, sir.
What is your daily routine, and how has your routine as far as working out changed since you first got to the business and since your injury and everything? What do you do to stay in such great shape?
Light weights, a lot of reps. The injuries have taken their toll. I've had 7 total knee surgeries. Both my shoulders are bone to bone. I need total shoulder replacement, so I can't hardly raise those. I got a total rotator cuff on the right shoulder, but at 57, I'm too young to have the replacement because I only have a 20-year life expectancy. I have to wait till I'm 60 to do that. I have, in the back, I have 5 crushed discs, 2 herniated discs that are bulging out a sciatic nerve. So I just took my very first cortisone shot in November. I have another one coming up because I'm so anti-shot that the surgeon at that time says, well, when do you want to schedule your surgery? Because it's going to be extensive. I'm going to be out of the gym for a year, out of work for 4 months. And I said, well, tell me about these shots, man. So we're delaying the surgery on the shots. But I do lightweight, a lot of reps. I do 5 sets of anywhere from 15 to 25. My heavy days are other people's light days. There are no more heavy days for me. But that's what I do. You do what you can do. I can't do any more free weights. Everything's on a machine now, the Smith machine for the benches, and they have bench press machine and everything else. So, and that's what it is, and as each of us age, we lose a little bit more what we can do, but, I look at these young kids showing the weight around, I just think memories, but no, you do what you can do, and cardio, I try to keep up on the cardio so I can still go in the ring, and then it's like you climb in that ring and you just feel so much better. That's my home, and it's hard to explain to people who have not ever been in the business or not associated with it. Fans that can appreciate it, but my God, you climb in that ring and it's like the fountain of youth when you climb through those ropes. And so it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And I appreciate your praise. I thank you, man.
No problem. And one more question before I pass on the vein and stuff. I know time is running short. you're over there in the Portland, Washington State area, the Pacific Northwest. How do you feel about the state of wrestling in that area? You know, I just made my first travel over there to wrestle for NWA Blue Collar in Portland and stuff. But they're seeing a huge resurgence of wrestling, especially independent wrestling in the Pacific Northwest. What's your feelings about that right now?
I'm kind of torn, man. Pacific Northwest was a hotbed. When I was growing up, that is where people came through there to tone their craft before they went on to the bigger organization. At the time, it was AWA, and then into WCW, and then into Titan, WWF. And it had fallen on hard times because of the commission and everything else. And it's starting to build back up. Oregon is starting to become a hotbed again. Washington, I work for a small independent promotion that some of the big names are starting to come through here again. Chaz Taylor, Andrew Anderson. We just had Steve Stardom in. Cahagas comes through. The Chief Rod, I can't even pronounce his last name, but the big chief, he's worldwide phenomenal. We have Kevin Sullivan, WCW man of way back. He works for us. And then we sit back there and we just talk old time stories, and it was great. But it is starting to build back up. Portland area is again becoming a hotbed. They have great talent down there. I myself have not gone down to work down there yet because they got a good thing going with their young talent. I don't really need to go down and take somebody's spot they have going on down there. I'm trying to build wrestling here in the state of Washington. That's why I'm still in it. I'm still now starting to train. I used to have a training school back in 1999 through 2001 until I moved to Vegas. And we were doing very well. And my goal at that time was keep wrestling strong in the state of Washington like it was when I was a kid. So fans have a place to go. Fans can go and enjoy true wrestling. Independent wrestling is where it's at in the wrestling world. You've got to go support your local independent wrestling. Those guys give it everything they got, and they ain't making no money. I ain't making any more money anymore. I'm in it for the love of it, the passion of it, to build it again. And that's the state of it. And it is getting better. There's local promotions that run like I work for Sovereign Championship Wrestling. There's another organization, Northwest Pro, which is a half hour from us. Those guys are building it as it is. My goal is when I step away from the ring is to open up and run in here, not against these individuals, but in conjunction with them to bring top talent down. All-Star Wrestling in Canada, just across the border. They're going to come down and work in conjunction with me also and let me use their talent to build down here. And it's on the upswing. It really is. But Portland is back where it used to be. And hats off to all the promoters down there. They're doing it right. They're doing it right.
Well, Randy, the Pimp Taylor, we've got to wrap up here soon. I don't know how much time we have left, but I did want to mention I'm looking forward to your books that are coming out. Can you give our listeners an update? I know that you're writing about wrestlers, about your career in wrestling, 30-year span. That's amazing. And also having a Bigfoot encounter. So let's save that story for the books, or we'll have to definitely get you back on again.
Yeah, definitely. Not a problem. Let me give it a quick title. It's a trilogy book. All three are titled From Bigfoot to Body Slams. Volume 1 will be about my Bigfoot experiences growing up here in the state of Washington. Book 2 is going to be my 30-year wrestling experiences. And book 3 is for mature readers only. The true story of Randy Pip Taylor on the road in wrestling. There's some stories that you just can't tell, about what goes on, not only in my experiences, but everything that goes on and stories I've heard on the road about these individuals. Oh my God, it's great. And I would look forward to being on when we got more time because I got stories among stories among stories. And like I say, I live this business. I love this business. It's a passion. And again, support your local independent wrestlers.
Well, when can our listeners expect those books to be out?
Hopefully within 6 months to a year. I started putting them together, and then more stories popped in my head as I started going through, and like, oh my God, and so now I just got to get them in the right chronological order on some of these things, and things like that. So hopefully within 6 months or a year, I'm going to have them out. And
well, can you make us promise that you'll be back on to promote those?
Oh, definitely. And again, sorry for running over on you guys, man, but I love it and appreciate you guys taking your time to check in on me. And again, I appreciate your compliments. I'm just a bald old fat man trying to get by in this world, man. So keep it up with the young kids. So, but,
how can listeners follow your career? How can they keep up to date on it? What's your social media?
I'm on Facebook under just Randy Taylor, and check up on that, and I am me, and I'll definitely get back to you guys. I got quite the following, so yeah, definitely check up on that, and then you guys check in with me, and I'll check in with you guys, and let you know the progress of things, how things are going, and if you're ever in the state of Washington, look us up and hit me up. I'll make sure you guys get into some good shows, man.
Well, and one more question for you. Sign Guy asked me to check to see if your recent matches against Kellen Wraith, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, if they're available on YouTube.
I believe they are. And if you go to the SCW, I want to think what the name of it is, but the SCW videos, and they have some of those that are on there in their library. You can check those. Kellen Wraith is one hell of a wrestler. He's been working some house shows for ROH. That gentleman is got great career written all over him. He can, oh my God, I love working him. Phenomenal worker. Just phenomenal. That's all I can say about him. And I love every opportunity to work with him because he brings, after 30 years, that guy still brings out the best of me. When I get to the place and to the venue and I find out I'm working, my God, I'm excited as when I first started the business when I found out I'm working with Kellen. So if you have an opportunity, he wrestles in Portland also down there. So if you're in Oregon, get in and watch him. If you're in Washington, get in and watch him. If he wrestles in Canada, All-Star Wrestling, go watch him. Phenomenal talent. And so yeah, they should be up there on the video pages for the SCW. So, and again, thank you for mentioning that. And Sign Guy is one hell of a guy. That guy's got some stories also. So.
He's all right. We don't like him much out here.
Oh man, just the other night when we were working, and I grabbed us and says, "Are you reffing on my match?" Because I know you didn't even get a high. I go, "No, you're working my match, man." So, yeah, and no, Sign Guy, I love him. I love that kid, man. So.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for being on. We definitely want to have you back on. I think when the books come out, that'll be a great time for you to come on and hopefully get some exposure for it. And we really appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Not a problem, once again, and thank you for all you're doing for the business of professional wrestling. That's what it is, but it's actually the sport of kings.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Randy the Pimp Taylor. We really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great evening.
Right, you too.
All right, thank you.
All right, Will. Very exciting show that we had tonight. We had on one of my favorites of all-time ring announcers, Gary Michael Cappetta, was on. Had a great chat with him, and we definitely need to have Randy the Pimp Taylor back on. He was great. Next week, super exciting. We've got Scott Teal, who has co-authored a plethora of pro wrestling books with some of your favorite wrestlers of all time. And also we have on from Harlem Heat, Stevie Ray, and I hope he calls me a fruity booty. Got anything else to say, Will, before we sign off tonight?
Nope, I just hope everybody pays it. We're going to dub next week's episode the Will Huckabee birthday celebration episode.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, for Will Huckabee, for Q-Ball Carmichael, for our esteemed producer, Killa Kev, For our executive producer, the Prophet Rick Craig, this is the Bearded Wonder Zane Paisley. Have a fantastic night. We'll see you next week.